Thanks for taking the time to listen to our latest content here on the Blood Red channel. Guy here with just a quick message. Do you want the very latest Liverpool FC news directly into your inbox? Well, then sign up to our daily LFC newsletter, which will bring you the breaking news and big events from around Anfield. To subscribe, just go to bit.ly/LFC newsletter. That's bit.ly/LFC newsletter, or click the link in the description of this podcast and pop in your email address. It really is that simple. That link once more, bit.ly/LFC newsletter. Well, thanks for your time, and on with the podcast.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood podcast courtesy of the Liverpool Echo as Thiago Alcantara gets ready to swap Munich for Merseyside. Coming up, we'll be reacting to the Reds wrapping up this summer's transfer teaser. We'll take a peek into what could be left in the window for Liverpool, and we'll preview the visit to Chelsea with Jurgen Klopp looking to build bridges with Frank Lampard, ahead, of course, of that visit to the bridge. Alongside myself, Guy Clarke, he's tall, he wears glasses, and he loves a laugh. No, we haven't got Jurgen. It's our Liverpool correspondent, Paul Gorst. Gorsty, how are you?
Yeah, I'm not bad, Guy. How long did you think of that one? That's a new introduction.
Yeah, and I had it up the sleeve a while. And while Michael Edwards might be the master...
I'm looking forward to see where this one's going.
Yeah, well, no, for you, Doyle, I've got another one, don't worry. While Michael Edwards might be a master of his craft in transfer dealings, as too is Ian Doyle in the art of headline writing. Doyle, how...
Quite positive, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm fine. I'm suddenly buoyed.
Yeah, we've got
after that big build-up. Yeah,
I was going to say that was the whole point of the build-up today, was to have it on a buoyant mood, because everyone's happy that this might be finally happening.
Which deal would that be, Guy?
I wonder which deal that is, Gorsty, hey?
Yeah, things move quickly in football, don't they? Liverpool obviously got in touch with Bayern Munich after months of speculation, Germany, and thrashed out a deal quite quickly. I think Bayern Munich wanted it done, from what we're led to believe anyway. Bayern Munich wanted this deal done before they kick off their defence of the Bundesliga title tonight at home to Schalke. So it's all been wrapped up and done across the course of 5 days. Bayern were absolutely desperate to get money for him, where they didn't want to see a player of his quality leave on a free. He told them back in May that he wants a fresh challenge. So they've been telling everyone who listen that Liverpool are the team in for him and whatever else. And finally, Liverpool made the move. I think they were probably going to wait, weren't they, by the looks of it, until as long as they could to try and get the price down. But if Bayern have contacted Liverpool, as we understand it, and told them, look, we want resolved sooner rather than later, then Liverpool have entered into discussions and got it sewn up quickly. So it's 20 million with £5 million worth of add-ons, and Liverpool are signing the quality operator. So I think it's a deal that works for both. But all parties really. Liverpool are getting an elite level midfielder, someone whose profile has really kind of joined at Anfield. If you understand, Liverpool don't tend to buy the finished product at that age. They tend to buy players with potential who kind of develop at Anfield. Thiago, since he's coming in as a 2-time Champions League winner with Barcelona and Bayern Munich, someone who's only ever played for Barcelona and Bayern Munich, and will be a massive injection of quality midfield. From Bayern's view, they're getting 20 million on a player who cost them only 22 million 7 years ago, and a player who was 3 months away from being able to talk to clubs on a free transfer. So the perfect deal for everyone concerned.
Yeah, and I suppose we've sort of seen the hashtag going around Thiago Friday today, Doyley, and I suppose it is one of those that really excites people because, as Gorsty mentioned, they're just the sheer pedigree that Thiago Alcantara comes with.
It's amazing how these players get better the second that Liverpool are linked with them, though. I would like to know what they actually thought of him last year. Although, to be fair, there are certain players who they are good no matter what, and he's one of them. He'll bring something a bit different to Liverpool's field. Just interesting in terms of the saga that Liverpool were linked with him all the way through the summer. But I mean, I don't know how many times the German press was saying that Thiago had said his goodbyes to Bayern Munich because they were doing it on Wednesday, and that was about the fourth time to some people. So it was a very long goodbye for him, in which he managed to win the Bundesliga and, as we say, the Champions League. So It's rare for Liverpool to sign somebody who's won the European. I wrote a piece this morning, which is a little bit of debate from what I've just seen on Twitter, basically saying, "Oh, look, you're just being negative. He hasn't even signed yet." But the reality is that it's very unusual for Liverpool to sign someone who's won the European Cup, and a lot of them ended up, for whatever reason, not being a success. I mean, I don't think that'll be a problem here. I think Liverpool are actually buying somebody to keep them as Premier League champions and to keep them as, one of the best team in world football. They are the current world champions. So, and the outgoing, they were the last year's European Cup winners. So, in that sense, you do wonder. It makes sense because Liverpool, how could they possibly improve the team unless they're going to buy, as Gorsty said, ready-made talent like this? I mean, they will buy, one or two youngsters. They bought Harvey Elliott last year. You've seen how he's progressed. They like Curtis Jones and Nico Williams as well. So these are players that bring into and trying to develop at Liverpool. But for them to stay where they are, they were going to have to buy. Whether somebody's at that standard, possibly not. But the fact that they got somebody like that for that amount of money, and someone who quite clearly from some of his previous comments really enjoys how Liverpool play, and he understands it, which will be I think that'll be a big thing. We've seen with a lot of signings Liverpool make, certainly in midfield, they take a while to settle, but he's been watching Liverpool for months. And he's clearly been a fan for at least 18 months when they played Bayern Munich at Anfield of the Champions League. So he'll know what it's all about. He'll know what to expect. And of course, it's another example of Jurgen Klopp. I would imagine that a lot of it is down to the fact that he wanted to play under him. He said he wanted a fresh challenge, and the best players in the world clearly now wanted to play for Liverpool and to play under Jurgen Klopp.
Yes, certainly does seem to be the case. And talk about in a bit sort of how it affects those already within the squad. And Gini Wijnaldum, of course, has been linked with this move in another way a lot of the time, Gorsty. But looking at even what Thiago brings to the squad, for me, he's a player who, having played for Barcelona and Bayern Munich, with the likes of James Milner and even Jordan Henderson getting on, and obviously the other side of 30, he's the kind of guy who's going to arrive at Melwood and immediately know what kind of standards to set even around training grounds for Liverpool to maintain the level that's seen them, obviously, in the last two seasons, become Champions League winners and Premier League winners. Yeah,
undoubtedly. As I said there, he's only ever played for two clubs, hasn't he? So the absolute best in the world in Bayern and Barcelona, arguably, the biggest in Spain and certainly the biggest in Germany. So he's going to come in. He's going to come into, you could argue the biggest in England. So it's, he's a player with massive degree. So he on his list, two-time Champions League winner, as I say, and it's a massive shift in kind of thought process from the owners, who obviously have preferred to sign players with talent and can kind of become world stars at Anfield. This is the first time in a good while an absolute elite level talent has joined Liverpool as the ready-made star. I mean, I'd argue that Ashton was that, but he only came from obviously a big club in Italy, but they're not quite Juventus, are they? Or it's not Barcelona, it's not Bayern Munich. So it's an interesting one, and to be honest, I can't wait to see him. Obviously, we've known these links for the best part of 3 months now, and as we stressed that Liverpool only opened discussions on Monday, but he's someone who you kind of watch a little bit closely when that Liverpool's name is floating around. He's an unbelievable operator. I've seen him across the little Champions League kind of new format that was in Portugal, and then watched him recently when he played against Germany, and he's a fantastic player. There's no doubt about that, and someone who I'm looking forward to seeing next year or this season, and seeing what kind of midfield Klopp goes with and how he kind of deploys Thiago in that three, because it's going to be fascinating, I think.
Yeah, and it brings somewhat of a lift around the place as well, Doyle. After the game against United, everyone going, "Oh, Liverpool can't defend." We'll get onto that ahead of the Chelsea game in a bit, but everybody's sort of all doom and gloom. Liverpool aren't signing anyone. Liverpool can't defend. They pull off this transfer, and all of a sudden, everyone's sort of buzzing. This smiles beat across everyone's faces.
I mean, you're going to laugh at me saying this, but I have to be honest, I've not seen anyone being doom or gloom, to be honest. Anyone I know supports Liverpool, they're just like, oh, well, they beat Leeds 4-3, they won a game. We knew they were probably going to sign somebody else in the transfer market. They've got some big games coming up. They're in a position of strength, and it's difficult for Liverpool to improve on the squad that they've got, given the fact that high quality that's there already. And also there's the fact that you look at Timo Werner, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a bit. Obviously, Liverpool are coming up against him on Sunday. He could have waited and possibly joined Liverpool season, but he didn't want to. He gave a hint in an interview that he did this week where he said, maybe I'm not such a good fit at other clubs. And yeah, the good fit would have been he'd probably been on the bench for 33% of the time, 40% of the time, until possibly next time where Liverpool might want to change things up in the front three. I mean, that's obviously all gone now, but that's an example of how it's hard for Liverpool to improve or maintain the standard that's in the squad, because they're either going to have to pay absolute fortunes, which we know for whatever reason they aren't inclined to do that unless there's people going out to help facilitate that, or they get a deal like this done. So for them to get a player like Thiago for the money they've got, as we said, it's a good for everybody. It's a good deal for Liverpool, because Bayern would have just been like, well, he's going. We know he's going. We just want to get on with it. So they've got some money, but they're still losing out on a very good player who's helped them it's the Champions League final and to win it. Was it 4 or 5 titles in a row, or something like that? I think he won it every single year he was there. I think he did.
It's isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So and it's interesting you mentioned then about where he could fit in the midfield. I'm not sure we're going to go on to that in a minute, but he spent most of his time playing in a 2 in defensive midfield. I mean, he played that in the final against PSG, and we've seen Klopp sometimes gone to that, the 4-2-3-1 or the 4-2-2 or whatever you want to call it. Not last season, he spent most of it 4-3-3. The year before, he went to 4-2-3-1 and moved players around. But because he's got Minamino there now as well, he could play Minamino and Thiago in a completely different midfield front three in terms of the way they approach the game. So Liverpool aren't going to be as predictable for everybody who's watched them all last season and gone, right, we know how to stop Liverpool, get to the full-backs and high press and all this, that and the other. Suddenly, they've got this guy, Thiago, who can play balls from deep through defences and plays clear. And that means that opposition teams have to think again, and it gives them something else to think about, which is why a player like him is so rare and he's so important for Liverpool, given what they have to come up against this season.
Yeah, Michael Edwards, of course, again, is taking a lot of credit from supporters online, Gorsty, and I suppose it highlights what Doyle was referencing there, really, how Liverpool, Michael Edwards, Jurgen Klopp really do have the elite of the elite in each of their roles, because if Liverpool are maybe going to move to this 4-2-2-2, make sure I'm not saying too many times. Yeah, I think that was right. And they have sort of those 2 false nines in Minamino and Theo, and Diogo plays deeper role. Jurgen Klopp tactically is already thinking of how to move things on. And in the transfer window, in the transfer market, of course, they got Michael Edwards, who can be one step ahead of the rivals in that regard as well.
Yeah, well, Pat Linda said all summer that the next step for Liverpool is to become unpredictable. I certainly think this transfer saga has certainly been unpredictable, hasn't it? But in terms of what he offers Liverpool on the pitch, I think there is an element of unpredictability as well, because if they kind of try their best to cut off the supply line from the wide areas, particularly with the 2 full-backs and Salah and Mane, then they've got half a chance of beating Liverpool. But now they've got someone in there who can unlock defences a little bit better than the likes of Wijnaldum and Henderson and Fabinho. And that's not to kind of to knock those 3. They are obviously integral parts to the success that Liverpool have enjoyed over the last 2 years. But just someone who's completely different is, Oxlade-Chamberlain is probably the midfielder you'd expect to get on the score sheet more than the rest. I think he was actually 4th top scorer for Liverpool last season, 4th or 5th. But Thiago is someone who can control the tempo deep and pick the passes to the runners, to the pace of the wide men and the fullbacks. So it's just going to be really interesting watching him operate. And you mentioned there about Michael Edwards. He's obviously got the difficult kind of reputation, hasn't he, just because of how he kind of operates. But he's not reinventing the wheel. He's basically just the way they operate is just very kind of matter of fact and sensible. So, for example, if there's been another transfer this summer from a player who's inside the final year of his contract, they'd have looked at that price, and if it's tallied up to around 20 million, that will be what they think is the going rate. And I suppose could have been a similar thing for Wijnaldum. I know that was it last summer or possibly the summer before, when Liverpool were looking to sell Taiwo on Yui. Liverpool were looking at around about 50 million for him, which, considering he's never kicked the ball at first team level, seemed a bit of a joke and a bit ridiculous. But Liverpool stuck to the guns and said that Wesley had gone to Aston Villa for around about 22 million. They both played in the Bayern League that season and scored, a comparable amount of goals. I think it was around about a dozen. So that's why Liverpool were asking for that kind of fee. And sometimes you might think it's strange, but as I say, Liverpool just kind of weigh up the facts, and that is kind of how Edwards and his team operate.
And I suppose the midfield blend is going to be really fascinating this season, whether it be Liverpool playing with a 2 or whether it be Liverpool playing with a 3, Doyle. And Thiago has been a player who, Bayern Munich, has been sort of in and out of the Joshua Kimmich playing with Leon Goretzka, I think it is, there in that midfield quite often. So Thiago does know and understand sort of the idea horses for courses, obviously, in what Jurgen Klopp made this to do. But it does leave a sort of question mark over what now with Gini Wijnaldum.
Well, what now, from what we're led to believe, is nothing in terms of a change. He's still he's played in midfield more times than any other Liverpool player since he arrived. So that tells you how important he is. That's over 4 years. That tells you how important he is to Jurgen Klopp. So it's not as if Klopp's going to want to move him on straight away just because he's not signing a new deal, or he hasn't agreed a new deal, I should say. I mean, we started with Emre Can a couple of years ago. If Klopp thinks that the player's still going to be of some use, keep him. It's still cheaper to keep him than to buy somebody, for that kind of 12-month period. And Liverpool haven't bought Thiago for the next 12 months. They bought him for the next 4 years. They look to get at least that out of him, I'd have thought. So it is interesting because Liverpool have so many midfield options now that whether one or two of them start to get, a little bit, what's happening here. But I wrote something about just it could even open up the fact for Fabinho to go to centre-back. I know we spoke about this before, and he played there against Arsenal in the second half of the Community Shield. We were all slightly alarmed going, there's no centre-back options. What are they going to do? What are they going to do in midfield? Suddenly got loads of people in midfield, and they might not necessarily have to play that one defensive midfielder if they play 2. And then you've got Henderson and Wijnaldum have done that job. Henderson did very well last season for about 2 or 3 months anyway when Fabinho wasn't playing. So I think it may end up saving, weirdly, spending a bit of money on Thiago might end up saving Liverpool a bit of money this season in terms of the transfer, in terms of centre-back, because they probably think, well, we don't have to now. We've got Matip, and if 2 of them are injured, then Fabinho can play. And of course, irony of ironies, when Thiago was at Anfield last in 2019, the pairing that Bayern Munich came up against was Fabinho and Matip, because Gomez was injured, I think. Yeah, Gomez was injured, and Van Dijk was suspended. So, and Liverpool got a 0-0 draw and ended up winning in the second leg. So, Liverpool shown that they've got these options, and I wonder whether or not it will be that Liverpool end up saving a bit of money by not signing a centre-back this season, although further down the line next year we'll have to see.
Yeah, he's going to be an interesting one. That I suppose, as soon as, or even before, Thiago's been confirmed as a Liverpool player, Gorst, immediately fans already licking their lips and wondering what next. And a lot of people, I suppose, now switching their attentions maybe to the likes of Ismaila Sarr at Watford, or certainly an attacking option. The fans, obviously, the transfer window's still got 2.5 weeks left to go. Supporters want more, it seems. Yeah,
it seems that Diego Jota of Wolves is on the shortlist. I was told recently. Actually, it was quite a while ago, actually, about Ismaila Sarr. He was someone who was kind of on the shortlist, on the kind of, being monitored, I suppose, is the best way you could describe it. And in Liverpool, you think of the size of a club that Liverpool are, and, well-led scouting operation, they're constantly going to be looking at players all year round, aren't we? We've seen that they've just brought in Marcelo Pitaluga from Fluminense, and they've been checking him for, close to a year. So when Liverpool deals like this, it is invariably over the course of a long time. So this is where it becomes a little bit of a grey area when people ask you, are Liverpool interested in X, Y, and Z? Because invariably they will be at least keeping an eye on certain situations. So that's why Sarr has been kind of a player of interest, but so far nothing's been concrete. And it's a similar situation with Diego Jota. Some suggestions coming out on social media today that people are interested in, and that does seem to be the case. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks in the transfer market, but there's no question that Liverpool do need another option in their forward line. So can possibly play across front three, and I think if you were asking me which one I prefer between Sarr and Jota at this stage, I'd probably go with the Wolves forward because I've seen him more, and I think he might be older, but he just seems to be someone who can kind of operate down the middle as well as in the wide areas.
Yeah,
it's going to be interesting anyway. Interesting few weeks, whatever happens.
Yeah, I think there's only even maybe a year in it. Diogo Jota, I think he's only 23, and he is a player who, since Wolves have come into the Premier League, he does look to acclimatise to it very well, and certainly would offer options in both wide areas for Liverpool.
He would. I mean, he's not alone. There is Wolves. Wolves have quite a few players who are doing the business. I quite like Jimenez, but I think he's a bit more of a traditional centre forward for Liverpool to be interested in. And obviously there was talk of Traore, but apparently he's valued at £16 billion. I don't think Liverpool will be interested in him. But Jota's an interesting one because I wonder whether or not Wolves not being in the Europa League this season might have an effect on one or two of the players who've been there for a little while. And he has been, I say a little while, how long has he been there? About years. That's a long time for these Wolves players.
I think, three.
Yeah. So that's a long time. He's more than done his bit. And they've got this, I was going to say conveyor belt. Well, that's not right. But they've got this flight path for Portugal. And Mendes and his, all his group of players. Have you seen the third kit? There's the new kit, by the way. The Portugal kit. Yeah. They're quite clearly just on the wind up now. But going back to Jota, he's good. And Klopp will have seen an awful lot of him because when Liverpool have played Wolves, they haven't half given them a game. I mean, we were at Molineux, weren't we, in January, where it was a bit cold and. I can't remember when they played in that one because it was more Traore and Jimenez had a good game there. But point being is that he's obviously a very good player. He knows the Premier League. That'll be very important. He will be making a step up. It's obviously if he'll be attractive. Sorry, Liverpool attractive to him, even though he knows he won't be playing every single week, simply because it's such a bigger step up from Wolves. And he's at the age where he's probably thinking, right, I need to make this next move. And if you've got people, whether it's him or the Sarr lad at Watford, and people go, well, he's not really played for a big club. Well, Mane didn't, did he? Firmino hadn't. Salah had to a degree at Roma. Hadn't done particularly well at Chelsea when he was there. Wijnaldum was at Newcastle. I mean, we could go through all of the players. There comes a point where they have to make this move up. You can't always sign, as we've just pointed out, someone like Thiago from the European champions or players like that. This is Liverpool quite clever, and I'm sure we're going to mention it in a bit about possible outgoings now. Everything's happening today, isn't it? Ki-Jana Hoever.
Yeah, I was going to say,
Well, Wolves want to sign him. We know that, and I would not be surprised if, well, you want to sign him? Well, it's funny you should say that because you've got a player there that we'd quite like. So you do wonder whether or not his name has been thrown in, and we'll have to wait and see what happens. But Wolves. Everybody just has to get busy in the transfer now, all on the same day. So helpful.
Yeah, Friday afternoon.
They could have just spread it out, couldn't they? They could have just spread it out over a course of days, but no, Friday afternoon. It's getting on a bit towards the evening. It's like, no, we'll just do it all then. That's nice. By the way, have you been jibbed out of your lounge because it looks like you're in your box room there?
No, I'm in the kitchen actually. After last week's debacle of internet failure, I thought I'll try a new area. But we got any still to and we'll get on to Chelsea very shortly indeed. But it does seem on the transfer window front that we've had an elongated transfer window. It's going well into the season this year. Yet all of a sudden, it seems as though all of the clubs have found their wallets at the same time, and it's all kicking off. So it's interesting, something to keep an eye on. But anyway, let's move on to Chelsea and get on to the rivalry that's been brewing between Jurgen Klopp and Frank Lampard, which, of course, the Jurgen Klopp in his press conference today was very quick to pour culture all over and say there's no such rivalry.
Yeah, I think he was probably fair, wasn't he? I mean, I think the only issue that Klopp had of that exchange was the fact that Lampard kind of carried it on after the game. I remember Klopp, I think a couple of days later, was it? Just before the Newcastle game, that the only issue he had was the fact that it wasn't left once the referee had blown for the full-time whistle. But I think as much as Klopp tries to play it down, I think there'll always be an element of media that will build this up. And let's face it, there's no love lost between Liverpool and Chelsea fans over the last 15 years. So it's just a kind of added element, and it's a shame that the fan will be there to sit on Sunday. These are two of the biggest clubs going head to head, so it doesn't really need building up anymore. But it's just an added ingredient. Lampard's a young up-and-coming manager, and he's apologised for that exchange. I think had been fans there, then that might not have been picked up as quite as clearly as it was when he was telling Klopp and Pep Linders to sit down and F off and these are all arrogant and whatever else he said at the time. But yeah, it's a little tasty little ingredient to the game itself, isn't it? So I'm looking forward to Sunday. I think it'll be a good game. I don't think Liverpool are all their own way, which they did for a lot of the game last year when they went down there and were raced into a 2-0 lead until quite late on. So it's going to be a big test of Liverpool's credentials and ability to attain this title.
Yeah, before we come to our selections and our match predictions, Doyle, looking at the rivalry that may be or may not be now taking place, it did seem to be somewhat of a throwback to sort of, I suppose, 10 or 15 years ago. Mourinho, Rafael Benitez, Liverpool and Chelsea, and managerial-fueled rivalry between the two clubs. I think Jurgen Klopp even referenced Wenger and Ferguson in his press conference today. It does feel as though at the moment the Premier League is missing that, but Jurgen Klopp does sort of take that sort of leap and become a manager embroiled in a rivalry, whether it be with Guardiola or whether it be with Lampard.
No, I think if it's a rivalry, it'd be one way. It's Chelsea quite likely not so much jealous of Liverpool, but that they want to be where Liverpool are, and you're going to get teams like that, certainly the top teams. And you got Lampard, who's got the history of having been a rival to Liverpool during his playing days. And you think Champions League finals, were both one in 2005, which Chelsea lost, and the one in 2007, which Chelsea lost. Then they won one in 2008, but we don't want to mention that. But yeah, I think with Jurgen Klopp, he just want to get involved, does he? He just doesn't want. He always says totally different when the game's on, because then he gets more involved than anyone else there is in the Premier League. So I don't think he wants to get drawn into something like this. So I just think maybe Lampard, because it also helped his reputation. He's playing to the gallery of Chelsea fans, because at the moment he can't, because they're not in the ground.
And just a quick word from both of you. Back to you, Doyle, first on it. But I suppose plenty of eyes going to be on Timo Werner this Sunday at Stamford Bridge.
Yeah, I know where you come to me first. Yeah, I mean, he did all right in his debut, didn't he? Against Brighton, he won the penalty. He runs quite fast. I mean, everybody knew he was a good player. That's nothing new there. Will he have a certain reason to want to press against Liverpool? I don't think so, because Liverpool are interested in him. So it's not as though Liverpool didn't want to sign him. It was for circumstance. It just didn't happen. So I just think it'll just be a very interesting game, and Liverpool's defence will to test themselves. Somebody could easily have been lining up alongside a couple of months ago.
Yeah, and Jurgen Klopp was asked about Bundesliga talent today, Gorst, and he did speak both about Werner and Havertz, obviously two players at Chelsea who signed this summer that now Liverpool will be taking on at Stamford Bridge, and two players maybe that Jurgen Klopp had been keeping half an eye on.
Well, certainly in the case of Timo Werner, I'm not sure Liverpool will have paid the money that it cost Chelsea to have it. But yeah, he said it's a similar type of league, isn't it? It's what did he say? It's not home, but it's not too far removed from home, and you can see why players have moved across from the Bundesliga in previous years. But there does certainly seem to be plenty of talented young German footballers at the moment. They are enjoying a bit of a golden period, aren't they? And it makes sense that their big hitters would look to come and apply the trade in the Premier League. It's a shame for Liverpool they haven't been able to kind of get their claws into at least one of them. But I'm sure further down the line it will be an area that Klopp will continue to kind of look at. There's no league that he knows better than the Bundesliga, is there? So Chelsea have obviously got the two big stars at the moment. I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on this season. Let's hope they have a stinker on Sunday. But across the next few months, it will be fascinating to see how they develop.
Yeah, well, let's then get into looking ahead to the game, and we'll do our score predictions for the game. Obviously, the two of you guys will be covering the game, and we will have extensive coverage across the Echo. How do you see this one playing out, Doyle?
I wouldn't be surprised whatever the score is. Wouldn't be surprised if the outcome, I should say. Wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool lost. Wouldn't be surprised if Liverpool won. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a draw. I just think it's one of those games where we're so early in the season. Chelsea has such an unknown quantity with the players that they've got. Liverpool, you're just still trying to work out whether or not the defensive frailties of returns have been because the other have been in the attack. Okay, right. Ceded 6 goals in the last 2 home games against Chelsea and Leeds, but they scored 9 and won both games. So the whole point of football is to win. So in that sense, that what Leeds and Chelsea tried didn't work because they didn't win, they didn't get a draw. So I do wonder whether Chelsea will try that again. I do wonder that, but don't know. It'll be it's not going to be 0-0. Okay, there you go. Won't be 0-0.
Oh, crikey, that's sitting on the fence. Let's see. What are you saying?
Tough one, isn't it? I don't want to do a Mark Lawrence and just say that Liverpool are going to win every game, so I'm going to say 2 draw.
Yeah, I do think there is going to be goal in this one. I'm inclined to maybe agree. I'm going to go 2-1 to Liverpool. I do think Liverpool will get the win. Doyley, do you want to come off the fence and actually have a proper go?
No. I'll go 2-all. I'll let 2-all.
Right, no worries.
Sure.
Well, of course, keep an eye out on the Liverpool Echo website for reaction to Thiago Alcantara signing for Liverpool as and when it happens. By the time this podcast may ready have already actually happened. Keep an eye and an ear out across everything we have in store across the Blood Red channel as well, whether that be our podcast platforms or our dedicated YouTube channel. For now, though, thanks for your time and your company. Bye for now.